Hello, everyone, and welcome to our Thursday educational series. I'm your host, Honey Sagari, CEO of Qyral, and this week we have a very special guest. Alex Boyanju is my teacher and has been for the past 3 years. We all have a higher spiritual journey that we're on, and Alex has been instrumental in helping me navigate through my journey in order to figure out my higher purpose. Over the course of these few years, he's really helped me define the mission and purpose, not only of my life, but also formulating Qyral's mission and helping me, get to the place that we need to on a professional level. So thank you, Alex.
Thank you.
Provided me with so much guidance, grounding, centering myself, and really coming back to the present moment. He's given me tons of great tips on naturally increasing my feel-good neurochemicals, hence why I did my cold shower this morning, natural herbs remedies. We've done tons of EMDR sessions together. And Alex also hosts a weekly meditation group that has been life-changing, to say the least. So I'm so grateful for you, Alex, but enough about what you've done for me. Let me talk a little about you. Alex is a psychotherapist with over 30 years of experience dedicated to guiding individuals, couples, and families through life's challenges. With a holistic approach, Alex combines his extensive education and training in Eastern and Western psychology and philosophy to help clients understand themselves more intimately and break free from outdated ways of living. Specializing in addiction and trauma treatment, Alex is an EMDR certified therapist, licensed professional counselor, and a certified yoga instructor and meditation teacher. He holds a master's in science and counseling from Queens College and a PhD in East-West psychology from California Institute of Integral Studies. His unique blend of therapeutic methods, including the cutting-edge EMDR therapy, aims to facilitate healing, awaken inner resources, and guide individuals towards a life of freedom, joy, and success. Alex, it's such a joy and privilege to have you here today. Thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you so much for the invitation. I'm really looking forward to our dialogue.
I am too. I don't think I've ever asked you this, but what made you want to be a therapist? Let's start there. What brought you to this field?
Like any therapist, probably something interesting, right? Everybody's thinking.
Yeah.
But it's funny. I always say that I am what I do, and I don't feel that I'm a therapist. And I don't feel like a role. And it was something at a really young age that I was really curious about, the exploration of, like, who am I? Why am I here? What's the meaning of my existence, right? I have a really deep yearning for life's existential questions. I just felt like I just don't want to go through and do the typical things that society says, here's what's offered, here's what's happiness, because I had this weird sense early on that that's not what it's going to be, that there's something more profoundly deeper, more meaningful than what is being sold to me. And I knew that at a young age. And I think that then, knowing that and the curiosity, I was like, I'd like to help support people in that exploration of depth and meaning. And so that's been my entire whole life, and still continues. Almost at 56 years old, I still continue sort of saying mining depth in that area. It just feels like you're just deepening contact with that way of being that provides well-being, wisdom, peace, joy, that is not based on what I would consider conditional, impermanent promises of existence.
Well, you certainly do that for me. I know you just remove the cobwebs and break it down, and it's so simple. You just make me realize how simple it all really is. And it's
it is. It's not that
walk
complex.
away, the noise goes away, and you're just like, oh, well, that's easy, right? So
The noise that we experience is what I call the accumulated learning, and nobody escapes that. We're human beings, right? So from birth, even in utero, we are picking up information about life and about ourselves. And that creates like a programming system that over time actually becomes rigid and outdated. That's the whole thing. And what's interesting is this. The mistake that most people make is they make an assumption that the system that's old and outdated has something to do with them. This is the classic fault that brings the utmost amount of suffering to human beings. Right here. The mistake that the system is outdated versus there's something wrong with me. Does that make sense?
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
And so when we let go of the operating systems, we return back to our fundamental goodness.
And the system was really childhood conditioning, or things that, that we've learned and picked up, right? Is that
Yeah.
what it is? That's the
Yeah. Yeah.
software.
So look, your hair, for example, right? So you go and you get your hair done, right? And after some time, your hair is gonna lose that kind of shape after a while, right? And it needs to get done again. Well, that's a very flexible operating system. It's kind of like it loses that shape, it goes and it adapts, and it wants to return back. The hair wants to return back to its natural kind of state, right? It's interesting we're using that. What happens like with a bonsai? You take a bonsai, and from early on, you keep turning it and twisting it and twisting, and you say, I want bonsai to look this way. But what happens is it's going against its natural way that the bonsai wants to grow. And after 20 years of pulling this bonsai in a particular way, what starts to happen, maybe gets sick, maybe it doesn't want to go anywhere, it starts to wilt. What the bonsai wants to do, metaphorically speaking, is to return back to its original way of going. And what happens is we can't just localize this in our childhoods. It's all of life. Our whole life we're being conditioned. There's no escaping to that. What we're talking about is waking up from the conditioning. You know,
Mhm.
once we say, wait a second, I want to wake up from this conditioning, that's the moment that we can start making fundamental change. Now, when does that usually happen? Usually happens when people are unsatisfied, when people are unhappy, when people experience depression, when people experience anxiety. These are the two symptoms, the biggest symptoms of unhappiness. These two. And the science is very interesting. Only 1% out of 10 actually has a dysfunction in serotonin and dopamine that needs medication.
Wow.
The
Wow.
the other nine people, it has nothing to do with a broken mechanism. It has something to do with a a break from our beingness, a break from that, not a break in the brain. You see? So when we are broken in terms of from our contact with our beingness, well, it's going to show up as these symptoms called anxiety and depression. But then we want to treat the anxiety and depression because they're uncomfortable instead of saying, wait a second, let me get to the root cause.
Mm.
But, in our social structure, everybody wants a quick fix, you know, give me the way to relieve the symptoms really quick because it takes dedication and a lot of hard work to really understand the mechanisms of the unconscious.
Mm. Mm-hmm, mm-hmm, mm-hmm. I love that. And we're going to talk a little about anxiety and depression in a little bit. But as you know, Qyral is a longevity company. Our mission is really to add both quality and quantity to people's lives, right? 15, 20 years. If I could add 15 to 20 years to every individual's life, I've served my purpose on earth. So we
Please,
do that through education. We're doing that through our products or services, whatever, training, having you here. So right now with the holidays coming up, there's a lot of stress that people start to experience, right? They get so wound up. And there was this book that you recommended to me a while back, and I appreciate it so much because it was just profound and really life-changing. And for people who have not read this book, I highly, highly recommend it. It's called The Body Keeps the Score. And we've long heard the term, stress kills. And although the book is a little more about trauma, but that's a form of stress in a way. Can you explain the physiological impact of chronic stress on the body, particularly in terms of key organ systems, and what does that really mean for our longevity and our health,
mm,
long-term health?
It's a big topic, and so much has been studied now in the last 25 years, especially. But we were starting to look at this impact really, really. This came out of when we were looking at people returning back from war, right? And starting to look, because psychology was starting to pick up to see from psychiatry and medicine, was starting to look at war veterans coming back, developing PTSD. And these were the forays that were starting to look into modern day roles of stress. But you have to remember something: the ancients, even in ancient Greece, they understood the role of stress. And they had these amazing sanctuaries where you would go for the deepest healing possible. We're looking at 2, 3, 4,000 years ago. So we as human beings have understood the role of stress for the longest time. But let's go ahead and break down stress a little bit. And everybody knows what stress feels like, and we have some ideas of what it is. But I'd like to get a little bit more, sort of say, to understand the mechanics of stress, right? So again, from the moment we are in utero, our system, our nervous system, the most beautiful system, our nervous system is the interface with the hormones and then the spine and the brain. And the nervous system is actually the interface with our quality of beingness. I just want you to remember that, our well being. This is very interesting. So the nervous system lays between these two worlds. And what it's doing this. Is it safe to be me, or is it not safe to be me? So the nervous system has this whole complexity to it that's actually here to help you survive, because on a relative level, we needed to hunt. So there's an animal aspect. So the nervous system is wired to keep you alive. But after aliveness, we want thrival, not just survival. So now we are alive at a time where thrival can really be there. But if we're stuck in the nervous system from a survival perspective, we can't get to thrival. Well, what happens? Well, over time, the nervous system again starts to get rigid. It says it's not safe for me to be free and authentic and to play in the world and exist. It's too dangerous for many reasons, within my family, within my society, at work, crossing the street, in the subway system. It's dangerous. So what happens is the nervous system starts to operate at a high level of alertness. When the nervous system starts to do that, it produces endorphins, cytokines, adrenaline, cortisol, right? It produces brain chemistry that basically says this: you now have to be on alert. The problem is not that we have to be on alert. The problem is in our modern day society, that system doesn't shut off. So what happens is it keeps operating and operating and operating, and we're not very good in self-care. So what happens is we don't take the time to shut the system off. The system needs reprieve. It needs rest. It needs nourishing, replenishing, to go out again to deal with the tasks of life. And so when it's not nourished, it becomes more rigid and it produces all of these biochemicals. Now, I'm not going to get into the technicalities of the neurobiopsychology, and so forth, the chemistry, but very simply, a Yale study that came out said the DNA gets changed. Mitochondria gets changed. Well, what happens when mitochondria get changed? We become tired. We become fatigued. Everybody complains about being run down. Mitochondria is your powerhouse. And here we go. We start to damage the mitochondria through the ongoing. It's like mitochondria, you need to be on, you need to be on, you need to be on. Mitochondria, like, I can't keep on producing this being on. And what happens is the epigenetics on this is interesting, is that then the DNA starts to shift, not only for future generations, if you're going to have children, but the epigenetics for you, which means the likelihood of you then getting diseases now arises at a higher rate because the genes now are damaged and will show themselves up as damaged later on as all of the kind of diseases that we're seeing in modern day times.
So interesting.
Now,
Okay.
let me just the one more piece which blew my mind on the Yale study. The Yale It's not that it's what we say is causing me stress. And that's the misnomer. We need to stop saying this causes me stress. I can get 10 people and have them experience the same kind of event, and everybody will rate it on a scale of 0 to 10 of how stressful it was, and everybody will have a different range. There is no consensus. Now, obviously, if there's a bomb dropping, we're all going to have a consensus. So there are what we call stressors, where 90% of the people will agree to that. And obviously, I don't want to experience that either. None of us do. But then all of the other ones are subjective. They're subjective. That means it's a lens that I carry. And the Yale study said that it is emotional regulation or dysregulation that is the number one impactor of the way that I perceive stress. Fascinating. What does that mean? What does that mean? What does that mean that emotional regulation? It means that if I am emotionally reactive and say, someone's causing me this, life is causing me this, others are causing me this, that kind of emotional reaction doesn't take responsibility for the way that I am projecting. Then I become a victim. I become a victim of life and others and circumstance. And therefore, then the emotional dysregulation leads to a learned helplessness. Learned helplessness is the destroyer of our health.
Oh, I love this. Yes. Yes, you're so right. You're spot on.
So Eric Fromm basically said that we are in the age of where we have gone from anxiety, which is healthy, to a space of uncertainty. That life, we believe that at every turn of life, it is so uncertain that the normal anxiety that we have experienced as human beings would actually can be helpful to live. A certain level of anxiety gets you to hunt. A certain level of anxiety gets you to build your shelter before the winter comes, right? It's so that there's a in the system, that level of anxiety is causes action. But now we have this kind of like generalized uncertainty, which then asks the nervous system to be heightened all the time without having reason for it. And then that creates learned helplessness. And so these all go together. So imagine we're living in perpetual stress.
So let me ask you, I mean, Deepak Chopra once said, he goes, two people are on a roller coaster. One person says, this is the most exhilarating ride of my life. I love it. They're releasing all the happy chemicals, right? Endorphins and all the good chemicals. Serotonin goes up. And the other person, similar experience on the same roller coaster. And they're like, this is terrifying. I hate this. This is the worst experience of my life. And they're releasing cortisol and all those other chemicals that really destroy the body, like you mentioned. So as you know, there's tons of CEOs, elite performers, athletes are under a chronic stress. So is stress like a muscle that you can get better at, or is it just really the emotional regulation and just learning to, do you learn to ground yourself? So what techniques can you use in order to better regulate yourself during stressful moments, right?
Remember, stress is a response.
Okay.
It's not a thing. It's a response.
Mm-hmm.
It's very important. So when you ask that question, the question is, how do I shift my response?
So is it just your outlook, just shifting, making that roller
It's
coaster
and
ride seem
it's
like
just well, I'll come back to that in a few minutes. But it is fundamentally an internal shift of how I actually label and experience something. And the way I experience something, I can change that by changing in the internal space of how I feel about myself, how I feel about life, and how I feel about others. But what's really important in all of that is this. If I can start to create an inner sense of ease and calm, right? Well, that inner sense of calm and ease is actually better able to deal with a stressful situation because I have more clarity. Remember, the person who's going to die in the Sahara, who's hunting, is not the one who's slightly stressed. It's the one who's freaking out that they're hunting because they're going to run around in circles and the bear will eat them. not me. You see, the one who is in high stress doesn't see clearly, doesn't have wisdom, and instead of running up a tree and is freaking out like this, and drops on the ground, the bear is going to eat him. You see, so it is an outlook that begins from an internal space of well-being. So what I want to encourage everybody is everybody must find a consistent, their own way. It doesn't have to be my way or whatever, but a consistent way to recharge consistently. Not once in a while when you go on your 2-week holiday and you're running away. But even on that 2-week holiday, when we come back, we haven't fundamentally shifted something. So I want to be careful here. It's both deep letting go and relaxation and a shift in perspective. Without that shift in perspective, we can do all of the relaxation we want. It will not do it. So it's a combination of both of those.
Okay, so let's just break this down into super simple layman's terms. It's
Okay.
the holidays. Holidays are coming up, and I got to go Christmas shopping. I got to be a mom. I have to cook for 30 people, and I have all these things going on. How can I shift my perspective on something that all these things that I have to do, right? It's stressful.
Sure. I'm going to ask you a question. Okay. So I'm going to put it back on you for a second,
And
if you
the
don't mind.
mother-in-law, and the mother-in-law is coming up.
Yeah, so the mother-in-law is one of those lists that evokes the same response from everybody. So we'll just put mother-in-law on the equal plane of like 90% of people are going to have the same response. So we have to leave mother-in-law.
I love you, Mama Fantastic. No offense to you.
I can't create the methodologies to deal with that better. Just kidding. But so when you personally, as you are about to enter into the holiday season, I want you to answer the following question. What are some of your perspectives in the way that you are entering into the holiday season?
I mean, I'm not speaking for myself. I'm excited for the holidays.
Okay,
There's so
I'm
much
excited.
joy.
Okay,
So I'm really excited. I mean, it's stressful. I got to manage all these things. I, buy gifts for the kids and prepare that.
Right.
But I'm thrilled.
But I'm going to ask you about the buying gifts for the kids, not just you, but watch this: buying gifts for the kids, right? So it goes like this: if we have the ideas, and we could ask ourselves, which ideas or perspectives about buying the gifts for the kids are going to induce higher levels of stress? Which is, I got to get the perfect gift. I hope they like it. I hope they're not mad at me. You see, what I'm talking about is all the unconscious psychological structures. Please, it's not the holidays. The holidays are made by mankind. Therefore, all of the stressors are created by mankind. So if I'm going in there, I had to go to Macy's the other day to go do something, right? And you understand Macy's at this time of the year, it's a madhouse, right? So I walk in and I'm like, this is a great opportunity to stay centered while everything around me is going crazy and everybody's going crazy. People are mad. They didn't get their return. They got the wrong size. It's constant, right? So it's a constant agitation. But why? Yes, it is a lot of activity going on, but everybody's there with a sense of perfection that if I get this jacket, if I get the right gift, can't it be faster? Why is the constant projection instead of being like, it may take 2 or 3 hours. I have to go with the flow of the way that it unfolds. I want to buy a gift from my heart. The rest of it I can't control. You see, so going to the holidays requires a shift in my own loading of the meaning of it. And people have no. Let me add one of the biggest loadings that people have, because so many people have a lot of trauma in their histories with family. People go into the holidays like this. One, they can't stand the fact that they're going to have to be with all this family and Uncle Susie and Grandpa Bob. They're going to have to share a meal with them because they have a history with them. So what happens is we have this idealized thing that we're going to get together with 20 family members who some have talked to, some didn't talk to each other. This one likes the other one. And what happens, we walk into this field, right, of all of these whirling, intersubjective and subjective relating to each other. And we're thinking, I would love for this family experience to be wonderful. It may, but if I go in there hoping that everybody gets along and nobody says to me something, or Uncle Johnny doesn't fart the wrong way, right? Or something like that, I'm going to be greatly disappointed. And especially if I have trauma in my life and I want my family to really, really get along, I'm setting myself up for a big, big failure. So all of these expectations of gifts, the time, how it's going to be. Someone died during Christmas 5 years ago, and now I'm going into Christmas, and oh my goodness, it's triggering me. So you see, we can't say that the holidays are just, in themselves stressful. Does that make sense? It's us. We're the ones who create it.
So bringing this back to longevity a little bit, there's the concept of hormesis, right? And it's short-term stress on the body, like going to a sauna or, hit high intensity interval training. That's short-term stress. It's actually good and beneficial for the body.
Mhm.
So what makes short-term stress? What is the difference between short-term stress versus long-term stress? And why is long-term stress so bad for you versus short-term stress is actually good for you?
Well, we talked about long-term stress, what it does, right? But short-term stress in like hit, like I do Orange Theory, right? I take their class, and that's very stressful for my body. But after I stop, my body goes back to homeostasis. So I'm not asking it to do something. Now, if I kept on going and going and going, my body would tell me to stop and go to sleep and go to rest. But let's say I kept on going and I'm abusing my body and going beyond its capacity for short term. And you look at it, hunter-gatherers, they went for short hunting. It wasn't they just kept on hunting, hunting. No, they knew that. And they would do hunt,
Mhm.
sleep, sleep. Very interesting. Hunt, eat, sleep. Why? Why the sleep? It was the repairing of the short-term burst. So short-term bursts, like working out, let's say doing deadlifts or something like that, those short bursts are what are called, they create adaptivity for higher levels, capacity for more resilience. But there's an edge between resilience and emotional regulation and then detriment. So we
Mhm.
have to know what that space of is, how to develop the capacity for higher tolerance for things in life versus abusing my body for other psychological reasons. And let's say I'm going to go do hit because I think I'm a hot shot and I want to be stronger than the 25-year-old in front of me. So I'm going to go every week to make sure that I show up and they don't win the t-shirt prize at Orange Fitness, but I do. And then for 1 month later, there I am sleeping and my knees are injured and the 25-year-old is going out for, fun with their friends. That's the difference. It's all, again, it's about attitude and perspective.
Mhm, mhm. And so I'm going to ask this in your practice, what holistic approaches or lifestyle changes do you recommend for individuals looking to manage and reduce their stress in their lives?
There's
So,
there are many, many. But let's just outline just a few. And like Andrew Huberman, who I love so much, and Peter Tia. What we're seeing is such a huge explosion, and I'm following. And I think the other one is Beckman. I'm following the new explosion of people in longevity. Right, I'm almost 56, so for me, they say going into your 60s, how you go into your 60s will determine if you're going to make 100. It's very interesting, right? Peter Tia talks talks a lot about that. So there's a lot of suggestions that they have. So one of some of the suggestions is making sure insulin resistance, metabolic insulin resistance. You must avoid. Let's talk body mind for a minute, right? Let's go body mind. If you don't, like, since we're here, right?
of
People are gonna be like, Alex, we know this, but I'm just gonna mention the obvious, right? So the body part of it is gonna be away from diabetes, away from sugar, away as much as possible, right? The longevity gets destroyed. Peter Tia talks about, and so is Beckman. I think it's Beckman on what happens that sugar will destroy all the other gains of everything else, right? So I would say lifestyle is, just follow those people. I'm not the expert. Look at what they propose. But in terms of body mind stuff and meditation, what I teach is this: take care of your mind and your emotions. Take care of them. And here's the key. I'm going to say something that's the most important of anything you would ever say, body mind. If a person dislikes themselves and is negative with themselves. I don't care what longevity things they're going to do. They're going to be unhappy and destroy themselves. Mm. Self-love is the single most important factor, for longevity. Because what if I live to be 60, but I'm okay and at peace with myself? I'm okay to go. What if I'm 80 and I've been miserable with myself and I hate myself? I'm sorry. Who cares? So you see, we can't just say longevity as the amount of years. So being okay with oneself, at peace with oneself, is the crux of all body-mind methodologies. I can give you all the other methodologies, but if that doesn't change, it doesn't matter. It won't matter how many cold showers you take if at the end of the day, I still dislike myself.
So how does one learn to practice self-love and love themselves more?
That's a topic for several hours and many years of meditation and stuff. Okay, I'll give the best short version that I can. Right, I'll do that. I'll try. We are not who we think we learned we are. We are not who we've learned and think we are. We are not that. So I'm going to leave it to say that everybody needs to figure out, if I am not who I learned I am, then who am I? Let everybody begin that exploration. And there are several great. One of my favorite books, I would say, is by Sherry Huber, CHERIHUBER, and it's called "There's Nothing Wrong with You." I probably say it's the smallest book that I have ever read in my life and one of the most powerful books on this topic. If anybody wants to explore this, begin with "There is nothing wrong with you." And then find a therapist, find a group of people, find methodologies that release the grasp or release the misperception of that particular learned I am, to release it, to give it up, and then to sit with who I really am. It's like taking off a straitjacket and being like, oh my goodness, it feels so good to let go of this baggage of who I've never really been with, but I thought I am. I thought I was all of this belief systems and the I ams, but you're not. It's a mistake. When I was a kid in high school and middle school, I'm sitting in my childhood bedroom because I'm visiting my parents, but it was literally here. So what happened was once in a while I would wake up on a Saturday and I get up and I go running out and my mom's like, where are you going? I'm like, I'm going to school. She's like, it's Saturday. And I go, oh my goodness, it's Saturday. That's the same feeling we realize when we walk around going, I am this piece of crap, this. And then we work with somebody or we come out and we go, oh my goodness, it's Saturday. And then you go, there I am. I'm free. So I hope everybody wakes up to realize it's Saturday and not school day.
I love that. And what role does gratitude play in all of this? I mean, we talked about meditation and, but yeah, what role does gratitude play?
Look at the word gratitude and gratuity and generosity, but I'll use gratitude and gratuity. Gratuity means to tip someone, to give, to offer. It means to offer something, right? And the holiday season coming, and we're doing all this gratitude. We're offering people gifts in our time and so forth. But guess who we forget to give it to the most? Self. Mm-hmm. So when there's gratitude towards self, which is another way of saying kindness and love towards self, that's called gratitude.
I love that. We have a question that just came in. It says, "Hi Alex, what should I do when I encounter a trigger that immediately takes me to an emotional PTSD response? Is there a
Right.
way to avoid that?"
No, no. So let me speak about that. So triggers are the mind body memories that are going to rise up due to a perception that something is going to harm me. This is in the unconscious and the brain's defense system called the default mode network. The default mode network is the brain's memory and alarm system that goes off automatically with nothing you can do. You cannot change the alarm to go off. What you can do is to learn to work with not what triggered it. You get that's later. You leave that alone because that's a much deeper processing. What you do is leveling, you go, ah, alarm system, you did your job. Thank you so much. Thank you. So first, I'm going to bring the alarm system down. The quickest way to bring the alarm system down is 1, 2 to 5 minutes of mindful breathing. Mindful breathing. In 1 to 5 minutes, the trigger response in the body goes down between 50 to 75%. Look at this. Now, if it's a severe trauma, like very severe trauma, it may take a little bit more, especially if a person hasn't done that kind of work before, right? So we want to use methodologies that bring the alarm system down, and then we can process the unconscious material, right? And start to resolve that. When we resolve that, the next time a similar trigger comes up, what's going to happen is the default mode network won't go up as much. So what happens over life, successive therapy and successive healing goes like this: from the full arising of the response, eventually it'll arise a little bit and we smile, we go, hi system, you're doing a great job. All right. It's like, like in New York here, everybody's got, carbon monoxide, and smoke detectors, right? Imagine I have trauma, that smoke detector is going to go off when there's no smoke, but it thinks there's smoke. Let's say there's smoke across the street and it picks up a molecule of that smoke and goes off. That's what's called a trauma trigger. But what happens is when we bring it down through mindful breathing and other ways, what happens? We go, is there a fire? No. And then we can relax. And then we could do the investigation to calm it down for next time. There's nothing that you can do in the immediacy to avoid it coming up, but you have absolute capacity to deal with it when it comes up.
Can you so you've practiced EMDR with me. Can you explain to our listeners who are not familiar with EMDR what EMDR is and what it does specifically for trauma?
Sure. So EMDR stands for eye movement desensitization and reprocessing. So it's a fancy acronym for a methodology that helps to reprocess traumatic events, right? And helps us learn how to experience the trauma from a calmer state and from a state of where we learn to really see who we were in the trauma, to learn that actually it wasn't necessarily the way we thought it was or perceived it was about ourselves and so forth, right? So it's a way to reprocess. I'm not going to get into the technicalities, but it's a way to reprocess that allows the images and the emotionality to start to separate. So what happens is when I was younger, I saw someone get killed in front of me. Okay. And in that memory, right now, when I have that memory, I don't have an emotional response. I have compassion, but I don't have an emotional response. So, but if I had an emotional response now, this was 40 years ago, somebody with EMDR would help me process that, right? And what would happen, it would help me integrate the way I felt about the situation, maybe the way I felt about myself. What did it bring up on my existence? Because behind the traumatic response is a whole set of storylines. And so what EMDR is, EMDR gets to the storylines and helps change those. Beautiful methodology.
Mm-hmm.
So, other questions?
Thank you. Nice poster questions. Given your expertise in trauma treatment, how does past trauma influence an individual's response to stress, and what therapeutic methods have you found effective in addressing this intersection? Well, besides, we talked about EMDR, but okay.
Yeah, sure. Well, so the question says, remember something, when the field of trauma was really burgeoning, everybody kind of had these, what we call the big T's. And at first everybody was like, it's the big T's that are the most important, right? What I say is being human is traumatic, meaning you small T, big T. What's another way of thinking about this? Life and circumstances and people, that interplay between that is constantly conditioning us. And due to our temperaments from birth, due to our emotional regulation, due to our perspectives, we will encounter those situations in different ways. One traumatic event for another is not a traumatic event for another. You see, so it's complex. We have to explore the person and their nervous system to begin with, and how they cope with something, right? And of course, then big T, big traumas, what they do is what I said before, they create an inflexibility and a reactivity to future oriented, similar kind of events. So let's say I get bit by a dog when I'm young, right? Let's say really intensely bit by a dog. Later on, unconsciously or consciously, every time I see a dog, I want to stay away from it. Well, that would be a response of saying, but I say I want to pet the dog, but that's something's holding me back. With reprocessing it, we would help the person to see many things about themselves, what happened, how they can approach. Maybe now they can start slowly approaching and still feel afraid. So now we titrate, being like, hey, you still may be afraid, but you have to investigate. You have to go closer to it to see and investigate and so forth until you see, oh, I've done enough investigation. I'm still uncomfortable, but not paralyzed. You see, so what happens is when we move from trauma, we don't say that the anxiety is gone, but we can still make motion towards what we want with the level of anxiety that we have towards the things that we want, so we're not paralyzed. That makes sense?
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. So I'm all about tools, leaving our listeners with tools this holiday season and beyond. It's not just this holiday season. Stress is just a natural part of life, right? Some tools where we can manage it in the moment. So I'm stressed out and very, my kids are running around. My brand new couch, they just scribbled, which did actually happen with black ink, and they took my lipstick palette and rubbed it all over the place. I want to like suffocate them, right? What do I do in that moment where I'm stressed out and there's a million other things going on? What's something I could immediately tap into to manage that? And then also, I want us to leave 5 minutes at the end for us to do a meditation if possible. So give us some tips, and then navigate us to that.
I'll divide that into two, and then everybody can go from there. Two. One, not two tips, two roads. One is the immediate calming down, and two is the changing the inner mechanics of much deeper levels of stress and so forth. That's much deeper, longer work, right? So when you say to me the most immediate, calm down, use the breathing, walk away, go for a walk, do anything that you know. Everybody's got their own methods. Do anything that you know to get the car out of sixth gear and into second gear. Whatever it is. Everybody's got their favorites, just hopefully not destructive ones like addictive kind of things, because those have been not going to solve anything, right? But healthy ways to bring it down from six to two to one, right? Bring it down. I'm not gonna sit here and give all. Everybody's got their own. You know what I mean, right? So, but the longer ones, that's a whole different discussion, and there are different ways to shift the underlying nervous system and psychology that future circumstances are not going to be as triggered. Okay, so if we want to do something very simple right now, a mindful breathing. So shall we? Does anybody have any more questions? Let's just see, and then we can do that.
Anybody else have My God, we're getting so many wow, powerful messages. Yes, yes, yes. No, let's get started. We have some, yeah, I think we're all ready for this. And Alex, because I always feel so zen after our meditation and what we do. If someone's interested in learning more or connecting with you, can you please just share that prior to us doing
Sure,
this?
sure. Just
Yeah.
my website is really the best way. Journey to wholeness.health.
Okay, and we'll drop it in there, Brenda, if you could
Sure.
add that in, that would be amazing. So journey to wholeness
Yeah,
dot health.
that
Journey
help.
to dot health. Okay. Thank you. All
Great.
right.
So if everybody just can take a comfortable position that you're, wherever you're sitting, nothing special, and you don't have to cross your arms, just sit comfortably. What's important is the spine is straight and relaxed, the shoulders are relaxed. Close your eyes and just taking a couple of what I call welcoming breaths. Notice that most of us breathe very shallow. So go ahead and start to take what I call full breaths. Make sure that your lungs fill up completely, but don't cause stress. So breathe in fully without creating tension in your neck or your shoulders. So full breath in and then release. And again, full breath in. Breathing in. And as you release the breath, feel a sense of letting go. You know, like a sack of potatoes just dropping, shoof, drop, release the release that tension from the body, right? You notice that everybody was just like, yeah, ah. So as you breathe in, you're breathing in that nourishing breath. As you breathe out, you're letting go of all that tension you're carrying. Keep staying right here. And now we're going to make a small little shift. Imagine that the internal space of your whole body, from your fingertips to your toes, is like an empty vase, like a flower vase, but there's nothing inside this vase. That your whole body is this vase that's open on the inside. As you breathe in, I want you to breathe in all the way down into your into your toes and fill up your whole body with your breath. So as you breathe in, imagine and feel from your heart chakra, from that heart area, that the breath fills up the whole internal space of the body. As you breathe out, let the breath leave through the walls of the body. That's right. Breathe in, fill up the whole internal space of the body. Very open, very spacious. Now bring your awareness into your body. Instead of looking at your body, I want you to actually inhabit your body. Inhabit your whole body as that quality of openness. Now you are that openness, breathing. You are that spaciousness, breathing. And now let's include our hearts and love. Feel a sense of loving kindness, a sense of gratitude. As you breathe in now, bring in love and breath and fill up the whole internal space of the body. Now it's loving breath, healing, loving breath into the whole internal space of the body. And now look at this. You're shining like a lighthouse with all this love and light energy and smiling and ease. And now go ahead and do your holidays like that.
I love it. I love it. Thank you, Alex. Thank you
Thank
all for joining us. Thank you again, and I hope you come back, Alex. I appreciate you so much.
Anytime, anytime. Thank you.
Evening, everyone. Thank you again.